I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the Masters coverage, just masterful again by you and the CBS crew. What was it like for you to watch Rory McIlroy's epic? The only word for it was operatic, pretty much. Watching him have one shot after another, reminiscent of his greatest shots ever, and also reminiscent of why he had yet to have that career Grand Slam that he was about to get later on that day. What was your perspective sitting there watching all that, Jim?
Well, at the time, it was exhilaration. It was heartache. It was the ups and downs that you just documented, and it really was human. It was a facsimile of like a way that life can be for all of us: ups and downs, coping, facing adversity, dealing with triumphs, and all of this at a time when he's in pursuit of one of the rarest conquests in sport, and that is to be a career Grand Slam winner. He was the first to clinch it since Tiger clinched it in 2000, and only the sixth of all time. So it put him into very rarefied air and company with the likes of Nicklaus and Hogan and Saracen and Gary Player as well. So, it was, at the time, it was wrenching. You felt at the end of the show like you'd been through the ringer, because there'd been so many times he'd won it and lost it.
Yes.
And then after you had time to reflect on it, you realize it was one of the great stories to ever have a chance to tell. We're in the reactionary storytelling business. We don't know what's going to happen next. We don't have a script. It's all ad lib. It's see it and tell people what you see. And it made it all more human. It made it even richer as a story that he won it and lost it so many times, and in the end, he figured out a way to win it. So I've been fortunate enough to broadcast 40 Masters tournaments, and that was my 40th. And I walked into Jack Nicklaus in 1986, winning his sixth green jacket. And I got to be there for Tiger's 5, including the win for the ages in 1997, and then the one in 2019 that no one saw him being able to win at that station in his life and career, but he did. So I've had so many remarkable stories to try to tell, but this might have been the best story. I'm not saying it's the greatest Masters, but it's definitely on my very short list in top 3. And it was just wonderful for the game. It was wonderful to see a roadmap for all of us mere mortals, how you deal with ups and downs and despair and glory, and it was all wrapped into one. It almost feels like a dream sequence now, but I'll count that one forever as being a very special moment. And when he finally knocked in the playoffs to beat Justin Rose and complete the career Grand Slam, all I could think to say was the long journey is over. And it was over. Not only on that day it was a long journey, but his career, he had waited 11 years to close out the career Grand Slam. It had taken that 11 years. And I just tagged it with McIlroy has his masterpiece. And it'll go down in the annals of golf as one of the greatest golf events of all time.
No question about it. And as you know, it's not just you in the booth and your partners on the course in the towers. It's also those in the truck and making these shots. And that shot of Rory, where the camera was right in front of him as he was walking from the 18th green to sign his scorecard. And just sticking with that shot of him just realizing the moment had hit. I'm getting goosebumps just even recalling the moment had hit and watching him just see his family, see his friends, and soak in the adoration, right? And the fact that your crew and the directors, producers stuck with that shot, you let it breathe. Awesome. I just was sitting there. I was crying. I was clapping by myself on a couch. And I think I'm speaking for millions of others, Jim. That was the experience.
Steve Milton is our director.
Awesome.
He is Steven Spielberg. He's Steve Milton. He's genius. And all the drone coverage and all the different angles we have throughout the 4 days of Masters coverage. He makes movies, is the way I look at it. It's not covering a sporting event. It's not like covering a football game where it's inside of a stadium and you know where your play-by-play cameras and your sideline cams are. And I'm not trying to minimize that task. It's big. But it's spread out over 200 acres. And you have the ability to get into art, really, and you hope your commentary can match the level of the art that Steve is presenting. And then you have our producer and Seller Shy, and that tandem to know directionally where we need to go and where the action is and how long we need to stay with it. And, our good friend Al Michaels is a huge Masters follower and fan. And he writes me after these Masters telecasts when they're really good like this. And he says there's no sporting event like it. And there's nothing in terms of television coverage that it can compare. He calls it cinema. It's cinematic. And I think that's the way we all try to approach it. We keep our words to a minimum and hope that they have punch and power. The ones that you do use, you try to let this thing have the air and the space, the breadth that it needs to let all these shots and the Nantz sound play out. You have that wonderful melody and undercurrent, the Augusta theme. Yeah, it adds up like almost like a dream sequence disguised as a sporting event. It's my favorite event. I've been asked that question for years. What's your favorite? And it's always a difficult thing to slight or perceive slight something else, like the gift of calling Super Bowls, et cetera, which I've had the chance to do it many times. But there's nothing quite like that. And when you combine it with a story as big as Rory going for the career Grand Slam and the crazy Audacy / journey that he took to finally close it out. Yeah, it was pure magic, man. I appreciate it. A month later, we're still talking about it. And follow everywhere I go. I hear about it every day, multiple times. People, golf fans and non-golf fans, were touched by what they saw that day.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.